Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2021-22 season. My name is Dan and today we are talking all things Double Game Week 28. We're going to be going through who I believe are the best picks, the best players for this specific double game week. So whether you're thinking about making some transfers to get some players in specifically for this big double, whether you are on a wild card or a free hit or whatever, you just want to kind of find out what kind of players are kind of looking pretty good for this game week. Hopefully I'll have it all covered today, guys. So if you do enjoy what you see today, please do leave a like and do subscribe as well if you want regular FPL content on your YouTube feeds. Without further ado, let's have a quick look at the double game week fixtures. So some of these games you will know about already, some of these doubles you'll know about already, but I do want to point out, and some of you guys may know about this already, but there is a really good chance that the Chelsea versus Norwich game that is due to be played in game week 30 currently may be moved to game week 28. Now this is basically going to be down to FA Cup results. So if Chelsea beat if Chelsea beat Luton in the FA Cup, that means Chelsea versus Norwich. That's going to be moved here. Chelsea and Norwich are going to get a double game week. If Norwich beat Liverpool, I guess that's kind of less likely. That will also mean that this double game week will occur. So it's looking very, very likely. Basically all we need is Chelsea to beat Luton in the FA Cup. Really, really likely to happen. And if that is the case, we are going to get a Chelsea double game week 28. We'll find out very, very soon what the result of that is. But for the purpose of this video, guys, I think we should assume that Chelsea and Norwich are both going to get double game weeks as well, and what a huge result that would be. That would be a really big, really significant for this double game week, and really, really increase the desirability of those Chelsea assets to bring them in for this game week. So guys, I'm going to move around the order of the fixtures a little bit here. So these are the fixtures, the teams and their fixtures in order of what I believe is the best set of fixtures to the worst set of fixtures. So not necessarily the best team to the worst team, but the best fixtures down to the worst fixtures in this double. And what you will notice immediately is there is a lot of good fixtures in this double. Now, there's not a lot of good teams playing this double. You know, we're not seeing any Liverpool or Manchester City. There's no Arsenal here. There's no Spurs here. There's no Manchester United here. So not a lot of big teams that have double game weeks. But we do have a lot of decent double game week fixtures. So this is kind of why I feel like this is a good game week for a free hit, for example, or maybe even a bench boost, for example, because all of the doubles are kind of for some slightly weaker teams that we're not usually going to be loaded up on, or if we are loaded up on them, a lot of them are usually going to be players kind of on our benches. So that's kind of why it favours a free hit or a bench boost, in my opinion. Even a wild card could do pretty well, but you may end up benching some major players. You could end up benching players like Cancelo, like Trent Alexander-Arnold, some of your Liverpool guys, just because all of the slightly weaker teams that you do pick from in FPL do have the double. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to put there. I know Chelsea are kind of a big team, but even though that team, Chelsea are kind of a difficult one because there's not really too much to pick from Chelsea because of the heavy rotation in attack. There's no clear attackers to go for. There's no clear premium options to go for. Even players like Lukaku, not exactly performing, are they? And not exactly nailed either. So really difficult to pick from Chelsea. So again, there's no real big hitters in this double game week, but there are some phenomenal fixtures. I like the Wolves fixtures the most, I would say. Crystal Palace and Watford both at home, really nice. Chelsea play Burnley and Norwich. That's a really nice double game week, particularly for some Chelsea defenders. So we want to be keeping an eye on which Chelsea defenders to go for. We will get there, don't worry, guys. And aside from that, lots of good pairs. The only, kind of pairs of fixtures I don't really like is Watford's, Arsenal and Wolves. That's the only bad double, you would say, in this game week. And Norwich, I guess because they're Norwich, it's kind of difficult to pick from them as well. One of the games is against Chelsea, but out of all of the other teams, there's good reasons to go for players from pretty much all of the teams other than perhaps Norwich or Watford. So load up on those double game week players. Why not? Let's go for it. There's a lot of good fixtures. There's a lot of good players to pick from. Let's go through now, guys, and have a look at who I think are the best fixtures. But quickly, first, I just want to kind of go through how I'm going to rate these players. So I have done this rating system before. It's a rating system. It's a little bit different to the one I use usually, but I do quite like this. But it basically split players into three categories. Essential. So these are going to be players who are really, really nice for this game week. And although there's not any properly essential players this game week, there's no like a Salah with a double. That would be truly essential. Trent on a double, truly essential. What I've done this game week is instead I've just picked the best player from each position and I've assigned them the essential status. So the best player in each position who has a double game week this week, I have labelled essential Aside from that, we've got optional players who could be pretty good for this game week, and then we've got some punts as well. Kind of slightly riskier players that maybe you wouldn't want to go for if you are just using normal transfers, but potentially, you know, if you're on a free hit or something, or a wild card, or if you're happy to bench these players or remove these players later, you know, happy to move them on, maybe it'd be okay to go for a few punts, or maybe you just want to add a bit of spice to your fantasy team. I know that's something I like to do. Then there are a few nice punts in here as well that I do want to kind of talk about. And if a player is not in this video, it's not necessarily that they are terrible, you know, it's not necessarily that they are just not options at all, but they are not players that I would put too high on my personal priority list. But you might identify some players that I haven't included in this video that you might think are quite good. But without further ado, let's go through each team one at a time, starting from the team with the best fixtures, which is Wolves. Let's go through all of the teams and identify their best FPL assets to go for. So for Wolves, we've got the best pick, in my opinion, is going to be Sarr, and I do think he's also the best goalkeeper to go for this double game week. And one of the reasons why I believe this is because the way Wolves play is they drop a lot of players back into the box, which kind of forces their oppositions to take a lot of shots from range. And if shots are from range, usually means that the shots against Wolves are of low quality, and the low quality shots are easier for a goalkeeper to save, which allows a player like Sarr in goal for Wolves to pick up a lot of save points from these kind of easier, tamer shots from distance, and he just naturally, you know, picks up those save points. It'll accumulate, you know, bonus points as well this way, which is really quite nice and can end up with a pretty decent score. Now, over the course of these two games, Palace at home, Watford at home, and knowing the defensive ability that Wolves have, you wouldn't be too surprised here with 2 clean sheets. So for that reason, looking at these fixtures, I do feel like the defence is probably where we kind of want to lean towards, which is why there's so many defenders I've included on this list. I've got Jimenez there as an attacker as well, just because, you know, it is difficult to pick attackers at the moment, and you would say that there is potential for goals to be scored against Palace or Watford, but at the same time, Wolves not particularly known for creating a lot of chances or taking a lot of shots or anything like that. Jimenez is in many ways the best of a bad bunch in terms of the attack at Wolves, and the best of a bad bunch in terms of forwards in general as well. So he is definitely a consideration. He's definitely an option there that you should probably quite strongly consider going for Jimenez. But I do prefer going for some defenders. Saiss, really good in the air, potential for, you know, headed goals and stuff like that. If I'm going to guess which defender is going to get a goal return for Wolves, I would say Saiss. Cody's pretty good option, really nailed on as well. Kilman might be a bit of a punt because Willy Bolly could potentially rotate there and displace Kilman from the team. And as for the fullbacks, because of the kind of fullbacks are kind of a little bit rotation risk, so for that reason, I kind of would probably avoid the fullbacks for now and stick with Sarr. You know, if you're on a free hit particularly and you want to use a goalkeeper transfer, I don't usually recommend goalkeeper transfers, but if you are going to go for, you don't have a double game week goalkeeper and you really want one, Sarr would be the one I'd go for. But on a free hit particularly, I would really strongly consider Sarr as your free hit goalkeeper. I think that's the one to go for. Aside from that, it's going to be all about the defenders really, and I wouldn't be too surprised with a clean sheet. I would expect at least 1 clean sheet. You know, a clean sheet against Watford at home, that's pretty good for even a not so good defence. So if we're looking for a good defence, this looks really good. Looks really good indeed. Chelsea are notoriously hard to pick from, and obviously there's no guarantee that they do get a double game week, but it's pretty likely. But they are really difficult to pick from, really difficult. But I think there are a couple of players who I would be reasonably confident in. And the first one is Antonio Rudiger, because he is seemingly incredibly nailed on. He's a really good defender. You know, he's really good attacking-wise as well. It does seem like Chelsea have, you know, got things back together from a defensive point of view. I know they've not played a huge amount of Premier League football recently, but you can see kind of in all competitions and even in the Premier League when they have played, clean sheets have been, you know, a little bit more on the cards, which is good. We're getting our defensive Chelsea back. We love it. We love it. So yeah, defenders again is where I would typically look to go to first. Rudiger most nailed on, I would say, of all of the Chelsea players. You know, maybe excluding the goalkeeper, but you know, Mendy doesn't typically get a lot of save points, so I don't think he's really worth going there, to be honest. Rudiger, really good attacking potential there. We know Rudiger's been pretty attacking, to be fair, for a defender this season, really. Thiago Silva is also a player that looks really good. He is, I would say, I'm sure Chelsea fans would probably say that Thiago Silva is just as nailed on as Rudiger, or almost as nailed on as Rudiger, but at his age, you know, 37 years old, I do worry a little bit about rotation in a double game week for Thiago Silva. But if Thiago Silva is nailed, could be even better than Rudiger. Good from set pieces. Thiago Silva does really well for bonus points as well in defence. So, if Chelsea are to get a 1-0 win or something like that, very likely that Thiago Silva does mop up the 3 bonus points and gets a nice 9-pointer without having to do anything in the means of attacking returns. So that's pretty good there. Reece James is a risky one because he is only just coming back from injury. I don't think he is going to be rushed back and play 2 full games. It's possible. It would be a punt. It would be a risk. I do think James is a good pick for the longer term when he does get himself back into fitness. But as for this double game week, I would be worried that maybe he only plays 1 of the 2 games, to be honest. And for that reason, he has to go down as a punt. If he does play both games, however, he could be phenomenal. So high risk, high reward, James. But obviously, I've put a couple of midfielders there. Mount, bit of a punt. Could be a bit of rotation there. Mount does tend to blow hot and cold, doesn't he, really? But yeah, potential for rotation. But could be a really good option if he plays both games, which is very, very possible. Ziyech, I like a lot if he is fit. We don't know if he's going to be fit or not. So for that reason, right now, he's got to go down as a punt, really. But in terms of attackers, Ziyech is probably the best one to go for if he is fit, because he's just been in such good form recently. So yeah, that's the player I would hope that we can go for. We're going to have to wait for a bit of injury news, but the League Cup final suggests that maybe Ziyech is not quite there yet. So maybe Mount is the guy to go for if you are looking for an attacker from Chelsea. But yeah, there's risks here. Rudiger, Thiago Silva, the safest players to go for, but it's not very exciting. We've got Burnley and Norwich. We want to get some attackers up in here, all right? With Chelsea, we want to get some attackers up in here. Very, very difficult to do with this Chelsea team, to be honest. So yeah, unfortunately, that's going to be difficult. But if you want to take a risk, there's a few risks there. Leeds, I don't think there is much going on here, to be honest. I like the fixtures. Leicester and Villa, I do like the fixtures a lot. But Leeds are in a really bad place at the moment. They've just not been doing well at all. They're just conceding far too many goals. Even the attackers are not in terrific form at the moment. And we don't really know what the situation is going to be with new management for Leeds right now. I mean, at least at this exact moment of recording this video. We don't really know what kind of Leeds we're going to see. Are they going to get a lot better? Are they going to be a little bit flatter? Are they going to be lacking in direction a little bit? Are the tactics going to change drastically? You would imagine they would. Marcelo Bielsa's team is, the way he sets up his teams is quite, is quite unorthodox, to be honest. So you would imagine that Leeds will be trying to try out a different system, and we don't know how well that's going to go overnight. So for that reason, Leeds players, it's kind of risky. I do like Rafinha a lot. I think if you're going to go for a Leeds player, Rafinha is a really, really safe bet, to be honest. Set pieces, really, really high quality player. Could thrive under new management as well, potentially there. And as for Dan James, he has been playing as a forward, but he is a bit of a punt, because is he actually going to be playing as a striker, as a forward in the new look Leeds side, whatever that might be? I don't know for sure, but there's not really too many options in terms of forwards for Leeds at the moment, so maybe James continues to get the nod. He's been playing okay, but you wouldn't go near the defenders. The defence has just been so bad with the absence of Calvin Phillips, and I don't think any new manager is going to be able to fix that automatically, so defenders aren't really an option. The only real forward is Rodrigo. He doesn't even seem super nailed at the moment, and he doesn't even play as a striker. Maybe there's an argument for Jack Harrison, but I don't know. So yeah, it's pretty much Rafinha or nothing, or maybe go for Dan James if you think you want a bit of a punt, I guess. But the fixtures are really good, so that is the kind of saving grace of why you actually might consider some Leeds players. So I've put Aston Villa actually next on the list. Some people might actually say that they prefer these Aston Villa fixtures to the Leeds fixtures. I do still feel like I prefer Leeds' fixtures to Aston Villa's, just because Southampton have been quite good recently, and Leeds away, I do wonder if Leeds do, they're going to be maybe not as easy to dominate as they have been in recent games. I don't see Leeds losing, under any other manager aside from Bielsa. I don't really see Leeds losing 4-0, 5-0, and it's usually only the bigger teams that beat Leeds by those kind of numbers anyway. So I think these are really good fixtures, but they're not quite elite fixtures. They're almost elite fixtures, but they're just pretty good fixtures. But they're definitely some really good players from Aston Villa, and that's what we like. And there's lots of options here. And maybe I could actually expand this list, but, for the sake of, maybe saving some space, maybe I could include Matty Cash on here, for example, but I don't think I would go for him, to be honest, over someone like Digne. But yeah, Coutinho, probably the best midfielder to go for this specific game week only. Maybe Rafinha is slightly better in the longer term because Leeds do have some better fixtures. But Coutinho, for this game week, I think he's going to be an absolute star of game week 28. 2 really nice fixtures, a really, really good football player here. He's going to be really creative. He's going to be taking lots of shots on. That's what he does. So it's going to be really, really fantastic. Digne, I do prefer out of all of the defenders at Aston Villa. I know people are going to say, well, Matty Cash scored. He's surely Cash is the guy. But you kind of look at the underlying stats. Digne is still dominating there. He's Digne kind of on set pieces, playing more advanced. Putting in more crosses and passes and things like that. So if you're kind of trying to predict future points rather than looking at past points, I do still prefer Digne there. So yeah, at the same price, it's a no-brainer for me. There's no reason to go for Cash when you can go for Digne, and I don't think I would double up either. Ramsey is obviously a really good pick, particularly for his price. If you guys already have Ramsey in your team, then you're going to be pretty happy with that. And aside from that, there's a couple of punts. Watkins just about makes the cut in this video just because there's not many forward options. I really do think Watkins is very risky. But Buendia, on the other hand, I do quite like as a punt. I do quite like Buendia as a punt. Pretty inexpensive, really nice underlying stats. And I think he could potentially be a surprise star of this double game week. I wouldn't be completely surprised if he did end up with, a 10-pointer plus over this double game week, which would be really, really nice. But yeah, a little bit of a risk, a little bit of a punt, but I do think Buendia has the potential to get something there. But certainly if you're just looking for a safe Aston Villa player to go for, Coutinho looks really good. Digne looks really good. Ramsey is so cheap, it can't go wrong. Ramsey is almost as good as a Coutinho, almost as good as Buendia, but at a significantly lower price. So you can't really go wrong there. So yeah, definitely. So Newcastle are kind of punt city, really. There's just, any player you're going for from Newcastle is a bit of a punt. I think we need to try and start getting into the headspace that Newcastle aren't as bad as they were at the beginning of the season. They have drastically improved, but obviously there's still a lot of doubts around them. I know we're all naturally feeling a little bit sceptical about Newcastle, even in a fairly decent double game week. It's not an amazing double game week, but it's fairly decent, right? Brighton not looked too good recently, and Southampton, I know they've kind of been tough recently, but it's not the worst fixture in the world. It's kind of a middling, average kind of fixture to be playing, isn't it? Southampton away at the moment. But like I say, Newcastle have been playing pretty well right now, so there are some options from their team. Now, I like Willock the most from Newcastle, just because he is showing, he's showing a slight vein of form here. He scored 2 goals in the last 2 games, and I don't know if you guys remember last season, but he did get on a bit of a scoring run, and he kept going and going and going and scoring every single game. So I do wonder if Willock is one of those really streaky players. We saw the signs of him being a streaky player last season. If he finds his groove, if he finds his confidence, is he going to be scoring every single game week for the next few game weeks? Have we just unearthed the hot form player? I think there's real potential for Willock to be that. So over the course of 2 games, Brighton and Southampton, I would expect Willock to get a return over the 2. Maybe, if he is showing a really nice vein of form, maybe he does get a return in each game. I wouldn't be entirely surprised if that happened. If you're kind of going to bet on a Newcastle player to get a return right now, Willock would be pretty high up there. Now, Saint-Maximin I have put as a punt just because of his fitness concerns. If we knew Saint-Maximin was available, he would arguably go up into the essential category. He could arguably become an essential player to buy because he's got 2 double game weeks in a row, and they're pretty good double game weeks as well. So Saint-Maximin, I think, if we can find out more about his fitness, if we know that he is super fit, super available, then he is going to play. Newcastle are still trying to make sure they do not get relegated this season. They are going to need their best players. Jacob Murphy at left wing is only going to do so much. We need Saint-Maximin back at Newcastle, right? So that could be a really nice player to go for. But aside from that, there are a couple of other players I like, and you might be kind of surprised by these ones. Fraser has looked really good, really creative, putting a lot of crosses in. So that's really nice to see. So in terms of assist potential, Fraser is possibly the number 1 pick at Newcastle right now. Target as well, putting in a lot of crosses, quite creative, particularly for a defender. So that could be really nice. Matt Target to go for 4.7 million. It's not the worst price in the world as well. But I do want to highlight Fabian Schär as a punt. 4.3 million. He is taking so many shots on at the moment, even though he's a defender. He's actually managing key passes somehow as well, kind of playing it out, and from the set pieces as well, he's been really effective. He's done this before. This is not the first time he's kind of played like this. He is kind of known historically as a goal-scoring defender. maybe so far this season he's not been, scoring every game, but recently we've kind of seen the signs of the old Shah coming back, being that defender who passes from the centre back position, who is happy to occasionally go forward a little bit into the kind of midfield positions, take on shots, good threat from set pieces as well. So this version of Shah is nice and could be a bit of a secret weapon for you. Go look up his scores recently, guys. He's been scoring really well. Go look his underlying stats recently. He has been doing well on the underlyings as well. I think Shah is potentially a real hidden gem for this game week, and I do recommend this one. If you're going to go for a spicy punt, maybe that's the one. It's so cheap as well, you can't really go wrong. But anyway, that's Newcastle. There are some options, but they are all a little bit risky. You kind of get, you kind of expect that from Newcastle. Southampton have okay fixtures. Villa away, Newcastle at home. I don't think they're amazing fixtures, but we have got Che Adams here, who has been in phenomenal form recently. Really, really good. And I do think Che Adams, as things stand right now, is the best forward option for game week 28. I do believe that if you're going to go for just one forward for game week 28, I would say Che Adams is the guy for you. So yeah, Southampton looking really good at the moment. Like I say, Che Adams has been kind of the star of the show recently. He's taken on a lot of shots. He's been reasonably creative as well, passing as well. So striking up a really nice partnership with Broja. But although we do have been hyping up Broja a lot recently, Adams has kind of been surprising us by being the better of the two over the last few game weeks, right? So yeah, although most of you guys are going to think Broja is the automatic answer for your Southampton attacker, unless you've already got Broja, if you want to go for someone different, Adams is probably going to be your guy. If I'm on a free hit, for example, I can only choose one Southampton forward, I'm probably going to go for Adams over Broja, if I'm honest. Aside from that, there are some nice other options. Walker Peters looks like the best defender to go for from Southampton right now. The most nailed on defender, and he is doing really well on bonus points. He is getting forward, he is putting in some passes and stuff like that. So yeah, typically looking really good. Livramento, slight rotation risk there. I know he's cheaper, but there is a slight rotation risk there with Perraud back. So maybe Perraud is going to come back and play at left back, and Walker Peters is going to play at right back, in which case, where does Livramento fit in? Maybe Livramento plays one of the two games. It kind of makes a bit of a risk, because we want a player really who's going to play both of the games in the double game week, and I'm not 100% convinced that Livramento is the guy for that, but I would understand why people would go for him, because he is really cheap and nice there. Ward-Prowse I've put down as a punt, and I know a lot of people would actually probably consider Ward-Prowse maybe optional, maybe even essential. People probably like the look of Ward-Prowse. The only reason I'm putting him in as a punt is because his returns are very dependent on set pieces, right? If he gets set pieces, he gets a lot of set pieces over the double game week, he's probably going to score FPL points. If he doesn't, he probably won't. And it's kind of a little bit more difficult to predict. Whereas kind of defenders, you can predict when they're going to get clean sheet points, because you just look at their opponent and the attacking ability of the opponent and the ability of the defense, how many clean sheets. There's some predictability there. With forwards, we look at the other team's defense. We look at how many shots a player is taking per game, how many big chances a player is getting per game, and we can judge how likely they are to score. With a player whose returns are dependent on set pieces, it's just, it's not necessarily risky, but you just don't know when it's going to happen. It's kind of a little bit random, so you can't really predict it. Over the course of a double game week, there's twice as many opportunities for these set pieces to happen. So in that sense, it's a good thing, right? But I'm not fully comfortable saying that Ward-Prowse is a must-have player, because if there are no set pieces over the double game week, he's probably going to be scoring 4 or 5 points, which isn't too bad. But we set our ambitions a little bit higher with our double game week players, don't we? But yeah, definitely a good option. I just don't want to hype him up too much and kind of deliver any disappointment on this one. Norwich, I don't think I would touch personally, but if you forced me for one player to go for, I suppose Pukki, reasonably cheap. Norwich have kind of looked slightly improved recently, but it's probably not going to be enough to keep them up in the Premier League, is it? The Brentford game is okay. The Chelsea game is not so okay. If you really, really desperately just want some kind of punt to go for, I guess you go for Pukki, but I'm not really feeling this one. And similarly with Watford, it's Dennis or nothing, I think. I wouldn't go for King. He's looking so off it at the moment. Sarr, I'm not quite convinced by either. I think even, Sissoko is probably looking like a better option than some of the other Watford attackers, to be honest. You wouldn't really want to touch their defence, although they have improved in terms of clean sheets. Well, it wasn't hard for them to improve on clean sheets. They weren't getting any before, and now they're getting at least a couple. Arsenal, probably not going to happen there. Wolves, probably not going to happen there. Dennis is the only player kind of showing any kind of promise in terms of FPL points for Watford. So I guess he's the only really option to go for there. But I would not feel forced to bring in Dennis. But if you already have him, I would say he's a pretty good, a good option to have. If not, certainly not an essential player to have. Anyway, but there we go. So quickly to summarise, guys, these are the players I probably would consider to be the best picks for Game Week 28. So if I had to prioritise which player do I want the most, just for Game Week 28 only, who do I think is going to be kind of the top scoring players? Rudiger, I would put at the top of the list. I think this is a really, really good pick. 2 really good fixtures, really high chance of clean sheets and potential goal returns as well here. Coutinho, I like a lot in terms of the attacking players. I think he's just, he's such a good player, and these fixtures are pretty good that I think it could be really nice. I mean, all of these fixtures are good of the players you see on this list, but right. Thiago Silva, if not for the tiny rotation risk, I would rate him really highly as well, but he's going to go in on 3rd. But there's other players I really like here. Rafinha, I really like for the double. Adams, I like. Sarr, I think is going to have a wonderful game. I think he's going to be one of the highest scoring players of the game week, despite the fact that he's a goalkeeper, just because I think he's going to make a lot of saves over this double. Digne, I think, is a good option, and Seiss for the Wolves defence there as well is really nice. So kind of leaning towards more of the defenders in terms of top picks for Game Week 28, but that's kind of the kind of game week it kind of looks like. It looks like a kind of game week for the defenders in many ways. So guys, consider 4 at the back. Maybe not 5 at the back, but maybe it's time to have another tinker with 4 at the back, because there are a lot of good defensive options this game week to go for, and these are my favourite ones. These are my favourite players to go for this game week, and it is kind of defensive dominant, I suppose, over this double game week. But there we go. Guys, sorry this has been such a long video, but I just wanted to go through all of the players I love for Game Week 28, and there's a lot of players I love for Game Week 28, so hopefully this hasn't been too boring. Hopefully you've got something from this video at least. If you did enjoy this video, please do leave a like. It really does massively help out the channel. If you're new around here, please do consider subscribing. I would really appreciate that. And aside from that, guys, it's going to be mostly regular content this game week, but I'm going to throw in a few wild cards, a few spicy extra videos this game week as well, because there's just so much to talk about with this double game week. So we're going to be, free hit drafts, wild card drafts, stuff like that on top of the regular content. Buy, sell, keep, avoid, 100 experts, my team selection, etc, etc, etc. So loads to come. Stay tuned for that. Once again, thank you so much for watching this very, very long video, and I'll see you later, mates. Bye bye.